Hello, everybody. Adam Parks here with another episode of Receivables Roundtable. Today, I am here with Panayiotis Constantine, who is a health insurance and benefits expert with our friends over at Acumen Solutions Group. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Adam. Glad to be on the show. Big fan, so appreciate you having us on.
Absolutely. You know, I've always learned a lot from you guys about insurance for the industry, and through some of our conversations, really enjoyed learning about the process because as a small business owner, I was a little bit nervous about instating health insurance and benefits and other things. And can I afford it? And what's the process look like? And what's my time commitment? And so we're going to get into all that. But before we start running down the rabbit hole here, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got to the seat that you're in today?
Sure. So when I graduated from a small liberal arts private college and with a degree in sociology. So basically, I had no specialization in anything after graduating. So really, it was left up to chance, up to the career gods as to where I was going to go. And eventually, I got a niche into the benefits niche by joining Willis Towers Watson, and so sort of like a first job out of school. So it was a great foundational place. Was there for 2 years, where then I moved on to Mercer, which is another, for those familiar with the insurance world, another one of the really big consulting firms for health and benefits. Was there for a few years before coming to Acumen. And so, my experience has been really with clients and companies anywhere from 2 employees up to 10,000. So really, my experience with clients has run the gamut. But with Acumen, it was interesting, and it's been a lot of fun because my role has really been in focusing on building the partnerships and working on our programs specifically for some of the ARM clients that we have. And so yeah, excited to be here today and talking with you about health insurance.
Awesome. Well, as we talk about Acumen Solutions Group, can you tell everybody a little bit about the organization and what you guys do there?
Sure. So Acumen was founded, I think, around 20 or so years ago, co-founded by Tom Milana and Tony DeLeo. Tom was, for those who know, he's the co-founder of Track America, and really saw with a partnership with Tony and building the company, really saw the need for the niche programs in the ARM space. So, from PNC Insurance, they developed the program for the industry. Health insurance, we work with you guys. And then on the other side, we have licensing and compliance. So compliance, auditing, other services like that. So really combined, you have a full package of services specifically tailored toward the ARM industry.
Well, fantastic. I've had the pleasure of working with your team for a number of years and gotten to know Tom, who was kind of one of those industry pioneers. So I'm really glad to see that he's still actively engaged in the industry. So, as we kind of think about benefits and insurance, look, I started as a small company, and especially if we're talking about kind of the marketing firm branding arc, I was a one-man shop for many, many years and, kind of lived that no health insurance world, which was not great, but, we did what we have to do to grow. As the company really started to get traction and we started adding more and more people, it became clear that I was going to have to offer benefits if I was going to attract top tier talent. If I was going to get people to spend their careers with my organization, I was going to have to do something to demonstrate my commitment back to them. But let me tell you, it made me nervous, right? Because small business, you start thinking about all of these expenses adding up, and that's a that's a fixed expense that I'm going to see over time, and is going to increase on what is already my number one expenditure or my number one expense, which is my people. And so can you tell everybody that is feeling those same kind of nerves, like the smaller businesses, what's the process look like? And, what do I have to put in terms of a time commitment? Let's start there when I'm ready to start putting these programs in place for my staff.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of the commitment that goes into putting a health plan in place, it really depends. So when you work with a benefits advisor, so like what we do here, we take a lot of the time work off of your plate. So there's a ton that goes into understanding the compliance and the legislation around it. Health insurance, those who pay attention to it's kind of ever evolving. So one of the the benefits of working with an advisor is that we take a lot of the time from you. So, if you were to do this on your own, I think you have something, it'd be a pretty significant time commitment into understanding, the elements that go into the benefits plan, marketing and shopping with the carriers, putting a plan together and making sure the documentation is aligned. But when working with another organization like us, it comes down to really, a week or two of sporadic phone calls, conversations, and really some paperwork and documentations gathering to really, put the plan in place. And a lot of that isn't even, time you're spending. It really comes down to a few hours here and there of just understanding how the process looks. And then from there, we can, put the plan in place, market it, and then present a proposal to you of what the options are for your company.
Sure. And when we talk about benefits, I mean, I think health insurance is kind of the obvious one, but what other kinds of benefits are you guys working with?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of benefits, you have the full gamut. You have, medical, dental, vision, life, disability. You have work site benefits, so like accident, critical illness, specified disease. You have things like wellness programs, spending accounts like HSAs or FSAs, even value adds like discount marketplaces, pet insurance, so on and so forth. So really, there's a huge swath of what would be considered like health benefits that we work with, and it's really not limited to medical, dental, and vision from that.
Okay. So there's kind of like a wide swath. Now, as a small business who's, starting to look at these kinds of things, what kind of criteria do you suggest that organizations look at when they're trying to select a plan? So even if they're working with somebody like you and you're presenting, let's say 3 or 4 different plans or 2 or 3 different plans, whatever the case may be, what criteria do you generally suggest that people look at when making that decision?
Yeah, well, when working with groups, the questions that I want to understand before even going to the market and presenting options is I want to understand, what do you view the purpose of your benefits program? How does it fit into your company's philosophy? Is it just something you're going to do because you're averaging 50 employees and you have to, otherwise you're liable for fines? Or is this something that you really feel is, a value add for your employees to show you appreciate them, a way of retaining and attracting? So after we understand where you position yourself in terms of who you benchmark against and where you want to participate in,
Mhm.
at that point, the conversation is a little bit more tailored. So viewing it instead of as an expense, but more as a retention and attraction tool, limiting turnover, things like that. So, the expenses and whatnot that go into it are oftentimes, offset by, the value adds and the benefits that people are actually getting by joining your company.
Understood. And it sounds like there's a, a lot of different ways that organizations might look at this program, right? But as we're looking at like individual policies, are there like some specific pieces? I mean, cost is obviously a major factor. And I guess from an ARM perspective or from a receivables management perspective, are there some things that you see in programs that are specific to this industry or specific needs that are within the industry? Or is it
Yeah,
kind
so
of
I
just
think
fall into like standard,
you know,
practices?
I I think that when you look at any specific industry, I think that especially right now we're facing really a labor crunch. And I
Mm.
think the arm companies are no exception to this. So I think that when it comes to looking at this specific industry, there's a lot of strategies that can be leveraged that are sort of gonna that we can tailor to the unique needs of of company, this organization. If you're a debt buyer or collection agency or law firm in the space, and obviously you have specific needs. And so, when it comes to what we offer and the benefits plans that are open and available to you, I think that there are specific solutions that can be tailored that actually will sort of fit the glove rather than just have a blanket catch-all approach to your organization.
Gotcha. So I mean, each organization, it's not even necessarily just the industry, but like each organization is going to be really custom tailored. And I'm sure that their geographic location is one of the many factors that need to be considered in what's available,
Yeah.
within
I
their.
mean, geographic size, industry type, location, budget, all those things are significant factors that go into the decision to make to add your benefits plan in place. But it's something that we throw these saying a lot of things and factors, and it can sound scary. But at the end of the day, that's one of the things we want to do is simplify the process, simplify the decision making
Mhm.
criteria, So that way, you as a small business owner understand what exactly it is that you're looking at adding, and then how that's going to affect your company, and how it's going to affect your employees as well.
Understood. And I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, cause again, we're all individual organizations and, we've got individual staffs. Have you seen any trends starting to develop, right? Obviously COVID has thrown a monkey wrench into just about everything. Have you seen any trends in, what, let's say what coverage has been selected, by industry participants over the last few years?
Yeah, I think the biggest trend that I'm seeing, and this isn't unique to health insurance, but it's really the way technology has kind of began disrupting some of the
Mhm.
traditional models. So even taking things like, an HRA, for example, which is a health reimbursement account, and adding a technological spin, making it more of an incentive to drive positive behavior. So
Mhm.
basically finding ways to incentivize your members to be better stewards of essentially the company's medical costs. That's one thing that we've found has been a significant trend, and
Mhm.
it's happening at every level, whether you have 5 to 10 employees up to several hundred. The technology is changing the way that consumers or companies are consuming their healthcare. Um, and so it's honestly really exciting. There's a lot of stuff that comes out that some of the vendors we work with, that you're just kind of blown away by the way they're looking at large data sets, and finding ways to incorporate that into traditional healthcare models.
It's very interesting. I think the application of technology is something that we're seeing across the board, right? Especially as we're dealing more remotely. I mean, would you really have been comfortable coming on this program in 2019, right? Prior to
Right.
everybody being on Zoom all day. Um, so I definitely can see the application of technology from that perspective.
Mhm.
What's kind of the number one question that you get from people in this industry as it relates to putting a program in place?
I think the biggest one that it comes down to always is, how much is it going to cost? And in a lot of cases, it's simple. It's a simple. It always comes down to dollars and cents, right? How much is it going to cost? And I think that, really the response to that is, regardless of your size, there's a program and there's a solution that can work for your budget. Even if it's just the most basic plan possible, it's something that we can get for you, that you're going to be able to offer to your employees just as a value add. Even if even if it's not what you dreamed of when you thought of like your go-to benefits plan, there's always a solution that we're going to find, regardless of sort of where you are in that spectrum. And then as you grow your company and scale it, the solutions that we can offer you will also change, and the decision-making criteria also change. So sort of really acting as advisors in the situation to make sure that you have the best options presented to you, and the best data to make the choice that best position your company for success.
Okay, understood. And so, in your role, kind of as a let's call it a consultant, or somebody who's assisting
Advisor.
organizations,
Yeah.
advisor. Okay, so as an advisor, it sounds like you guys have relationships with all these different types of organizations, different sizes in terms of the insurance carriers, and you're kind of helping people to whittle down what fits into their criteria, right? So you guys are basically like you're the guide, right? That's walking somebody through this process and helping them understand, well, based on the information that you've given me and the criteria available, that I would look at these three or four programs from these carriers, and then here's your price points and basically coverage rates. Is that a fair assessment of the process?
Yeah, that's fair. I think that in a lot of instances, we can also bring a lot of options to you and let you determine, like, let you decide, this is something that we're not going to look at right now, but you at least understand pricing right now for when you want to relook at it in the future. So you kind of have a benchmark in your mind. So it's really, finding the right solutions. It's, presenting, total costs, benefit plan designs, compliance pieces, so on and so forth. And then, at that point, your benefits plan, we view it as a continuum. It's not really like a 12-month a 12-month period where you're just working renewal to renewal. It's really looking at your plan as a rolling, almost like a living thing that we're constantly evolving and tweaking as your organizational changes grow and change.
Yeah, I can imagine it's not something that you want to look at least from a business owner's perspective, right? Like, I don't want to be like, hey, you got health insurance this year, but not next year. It feels like it's a commitment as a business owner, right? Like, once you're in it, you're kind of in it to win it.
Mhm.
And I know that's, at least that's how I view it, right? Like I'm a small business. We've instated these programs and policies, and that's great, but I can't turn around and tell people they don't have that anymore, because it's almost like demoting everybody in the company and taking away, some comp. It'd be like walking in and saying, "Oh, I'm going to drop everybody's compensation by 10%," right? Like it's just
Right.
not something that you do if you're trying to grow a good business, and you're trying to earn the respect and trust of your team.
Yeah.
But I think putting some policies in place and providing those additional options through the company, would you find, or is it safe to state that generally when a company is putting these things in place as a group, that the individuals are going to end up getting better rates for similar coverage than if they were off on their own as independents?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a few reasons for that. And first and foremost, you're leveraging economies of scale. So
Mm,
when you're bringing a group to the plate, the carriers are gonna rate the group more favorably. Secondly, and this is a pretty big one, the way group plans are set up, any premium payments that an employee makes are actually made on a pre-tax basis.
mm,
So if you're an individual, you're basically getting, let's assume, 30% when you look at state, federal, and local taxes. So you're basically getting the group rates at 70% of the cost, because it's on a pre-tax basis. Whereas if you're going to the individual
interesting.
marketplace, for example, you may get a better rate initially, but that has to be post-tax. You can't pay that on a pre-tax basis in a similar manner. So there's a few different things that you're getting that's going to be beneficial in this situation.
That is something I was not aware of. That is really interesting information. So I can basically, by instating that level, right? So by instating um, a policy for my staff as a group, I'm actually going to save them whatever, tax rate they're on in terms of like percentages for the cash that's being outlaid by them as individuals, because doing it as a group allows them to make those payments on a pre-tax basis. That's going to be a huge selling point for you, right? Like
Yeah. Well,
that seems
and
like a pretty major ordeal.
it works both ways, because on the employer side, so if you as the
Mhm.
owner, any of the payments that you're making with these premiums are also on a pre-tax basis. So any that cost is tax deductible, but also as employees are paying, it lowers their taxable income, so it's lowering the payroll taxes as well. So it's kind of, in a lot of different ways, it works in a lot of different ways to benefit both employees and employers.
Wow, that is incredibly interesting. I think that's a good place for us to kind of end our panel today. I really appreciate you coming out and having this discussion with me. I feel like we're going to need a follow-up discussion at some point to talk about the application, with some other individuals that have, kind of put these policies in place, and maybe measuring some of the results that they've seen in terms of employee retention and those kinds of things. Because I think that this is a very interesting topic and something that's timely, because in a labor crunch, all you can really do is try and provide a better employment environment for key individuals and high level staff if you want to attract and retain them. Not a lot of options these days, right? So I really appreciate you coming out, having this conversation. Looking forward to seeing you in person at an upcoming conference, I'm sure. Anything that you'd like to say to kind of wrap it up?
Well, I mean, I want to say thanks for having us. Excited to continue serving the arm industry. We've been doing it for 20 years, and it's always great to chat with you and catch up. And glad you were able to have us today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. We'll both be responding to those in real time on LinkedIn and YouTube. Happy to answer any questions that you have. If you have any additional topics that you'd like to see us talk about, or guests that you'd like to see me interview, you can leave those comments below as well. We'll be happy to continue creating great content for the receivables management industry. But until next time, thank you so much for participating, and I'll see you again soon.